What's up mga kadol? Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat to. Kumusta po ang lahat ha? Sana po nasa mabuting kalagayan po tayo ngayon mga kadol. No? So dito po tayo ngayon sa latest update po kay former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte mga ka-idol tungkol po sa kanyang panibagong request for interim release mga ka-idol. So kung natatandaan po natin mga ka-idol, dati nag-request po sila ng interim release po, hindi na patuloy mga kadol dahil po na may nag-object po doon sa interim release. So sa ngayon mga kadol, may panibagong pinapile po si Atty. Kaufman mga kadol tungkol po sa panibagong request ng interim release mga kadol ni former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. So para po maunawaan po ninyo mga kadol, ano itong request po ni Atty. Kaufman, so pakinggan po natin yung explanation po ni Atty. Abayon. Siya po yung ating legal education teacher mga kaidol. Si Atty. Abayon mga kaidol ay talagang eksperto po dito sa topic na ito mga kaidol. So ikaw kung bago ka lang po sa aking channel, sa aking channel sa YouTube o kaya sa aking account sa TikTok, yung Monster Vlog mga kaidol. So huwag niyo kalimutan na i-follow po si Atty. Abayon sa kanyang YouTube channel. Atty. ang kanyang account mga ka-idol. So kung gusto po ninyong legal education, so panoorin po niyo yung kanyang mga video mga ka-idol. So marami tayong matutunan po sa kanyang mga topic. So po dito po mga ka-idol, i-explain po ni Atty. Tungkol po sa panibagong request ni Atty. Nicholas Kaufman ang interim release kay former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte mga kaidol. So para maintindihan po ng lahat, panoorin nyo, medyo mahaba mga kaidol, pero nagbigay po to sa atin ng kaalaman tungkol po sa issue na ito mga kaidol. So panoorin po natin si Atty. Abayon mga kaidol.
Okay. So, good day po, taong bayan. So, ang video po natin for today is the most recent or yung bago pong request ni Atty. Kaufman para sa interim release ni FPRRD. Okay, so wala na tayo masyadong intro kasi this is very straightforward lang naman po eh. So, medyo may sipon lang po ako. So, kung nag-iba po yung boses ko, yun po yun. Anyway, start na po tayo sa discussion. So bago po tayo mag-start, of course, huwag niyo po kalimutan i-like mismo itong video po na to and mag-subscribe po sa YouTube channel ko para updated po kayo kung may bago tayong upload. So as you can see here, this is still an official document po na nakuha ko sa ICC website mismo. So if you want to get a copy of this, i-type nyo lang po sa Google ICC Duterte case, then punta po kayo sa case records. And then from there, makita po nyo tong pleading na to, which is yung public redacted version of the renewed request for interim release dated August 18, 2025. Okay? So una po, i-verify mo natin yung document natin as usual para hindi tayo masabihan ng fake news. So dun ko po siya na-download like what I stated sa ICC website, and if you'll see here sa upper left, makita po ninyo International Criminal Court, logo ng ICC sa gitna. Original English, date 19 August 2025, but the original date is 18 August 2025, and this one is the case number ICC-01/21-01/25. Okay, so this is addressed to the pretrial chamber 1, yung tatlong judges po natin. So of course, ano pa rin po yan, si Presiding Judge Motok, si Judge Alapinigansu, and si Judge Liera. Okay, then this is the situation in the Republic of the Philippines in the case of the prosecutor versus Rodrigo Roa Duterte, and then yung date ng pleading po 19 August 2025, and the source is defense for Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte or si former President Rodrigo Duterte po. Okay? And as usual, of course, there is a brief introduction po yan palagi sa pleading like what we have already discussed. And I have shown po sa inyo on the other past pleadings po na final ni Atty. Kaufman. So yung pinakauna po kasi nito, of course, si Atty. Kaufman, di ba nag-file po siya ng request for interim release. And then dun po sa request niya, yung pinakauna po niyang request, sinabi niya doon na hindi daw mag-object na yung prosecution kasi nagkaroon daw sila ng communications between him and the prosecution. However, ang nangyari po after a couple of days ba yun, or I think at least a week or so, nag-object bigla yung prosecution from the initial request for interim release. So doon nagka-issue kasi yung una nga sabi ni Atty. Kaufman dun sa una niyang request, hindi daw mag-object yung prosecution pero nag-object pa rin. And then after po nun, dun sa objection ng prosecution for the interim release, nag-file eventually si Atty. Kaufman yung deferral nung pag-adjudicate or paglabas ng decision as to dun sa initial request niya for interim release. Yun po yung last video natin regarding this. So kung gusto niyo po mapanood yun, ilalagay ko na lang po yun sa description box. Okay? So that is the brief history po nitong situation ni FPRRD. Kaya umabot na naman tayo dito ngayon sa panibagong request na naman po for interim release. Okay? So dito po, submission. So letter A, it states here, the conditions under Article 58.1b are not met. So ito pong Article 58.1b, this is the article sa Rome Statute po mismo na nagsasabi or nagbibigay ng mga reasons doon kung bakit hindi dapat mag-grant yung interim release against a accused po sa ICC case. So ipakita ko na po sa inyo yung Rome Statute para mas maintindihan nyo po talaga. So yan, ito po yan, Article 58, number 1, paragraph B. The arrest of the person appears necessary to ensure the person's appearance at trial, to ensure that the person does not obstruct or endanger the investigation or the court proceedings, where applicable, to prevent the person from continuing with the commission of that crime. Okay? So itong unang-una, dapat kasi sigurado na mag-appear talaga ang isang akusado sa criminal trial niya. And then pangalawa dyan, hindi siya makikialam or hindi po siya makikialam or haharangan niya or guguluhin basically po yung investigation or court proceedings dun sa ICC case niya. And itong number 3 naman, dapat hindi rin magpatuloy yung pag-commit po ng isang accused sa ICC case, yung pagpatuloy po niya makommit yung mga crimes na inallege na ginawa po ng isang akusado. Okay? So hindi ko po sinasabi si FPRRD already committed a crime. Yun lang po yung nakalagay dito sa batas. Kasi kung maalala po ninyo dun sa mga past pleadings, ginawa rin po kasi yung big issue na may admission daw, may quote-unquote admission kasi may sinabi dun sa Atty. Kaufman na will not continue. But anyway, that's already water under the bridge. Na-clarify na po natin yan in past videos. So yan po, ito lang po yun, yung sinabi ni Atty. Kaufman dun sa pleading niya ngayon na itong Article 58 number 1 letter B, wala daw tong tatlong to sa situation ni FPRRD. Okay, so ibig sabihin, may ensure pa rin yung appearance na FPRRD sa trial even if may interim release siya. And number 2, hindi po mag-o-obstruct or endanger ni FPRRD yung court proceedings kung may interim release nga po siya. At number 3, wala pong mangyayaring any continuation of a crime that he allegedly committed. Okay, so yan po yun. Ngayon balik po tayo dun sa pleading mismo. Ang main arguments po dito na ginagamit ni Atty. Kaufman from my understanding of everything na ito po, binasa ko na po kasi itong buong pleading niya. Ang tingin ko yung pinaka-reason nila dito is most likely health or old age reason po ni FPRRD. Hindi ko lang po masasabi na yun talaga yung specific reason kasi kung makita po nyo dito, puro yan siya redacted, a detainees redacted. So nangyari dito, naging manghuhula na nga po ako. Nilagyan ko dito, tingin ko this one is about health po to eh. Then this one I think is about doctors. Tapos ito yung redacted nito, maybe it's examined. Pero anyway, basahin po natin isa-isa para mas maintindihan nyo po yung gusto ko i-emphasize at i-point out po talaga. So una-una po dyan dito sa paragraph number 7, ang sabi po ni Atty. Kaufman, the appeals chamber has previously found that a detainee's redacted may not only potentially negate the risk of absconding but may also be a reason to grant interim release with conditions. Okay? So kung sa Tagalog pa, yung appeals chamber daw po ng ICC has already decided in a past case, may past case na po silang dinesisyonan na ang redacted, which I assume is the health or kalusugan po ng isang detainee, is can be used as a basis na walang risk, na hindi po flight risk yung isang detainee. At yung health reasons din daw po, pwede rin siya maging rason para mag-grant ng interim release with conditions. Okay? But again, I'm not saying this is 100% health po talaga. I'm just assuming based dito sa wordings ginamit and all the other substance pa po sa pleading. Okay? So ulitin ko lang po para klaro tayo. Ang una pong argument ni Atty. Kaufman is that yung appeals chamber nga po sa ICC, nag-decide na sila na yung health daw is a sufficient reason para hindi maging flight risk ang isang akusado, and that yung health reasons din daw po ay ginamit na ng ICC in past cases to grant an interim release na may mga conditions set by the court. Okay? So yun po yun. Itong ibig sabihin ng number 7. But I would like to emphasize na po again, hindi tayo sure na health talaga kasi redacted yung nakalagay sa actual pleading. But from my own point of view, from my understanding of the substance of this pleading, ang tingin ko po health talaga to siya. Either health or old age po ni FPRRD as the accused in this case. Okay? Kasi kung makikita po nyo dyan, next sa number 8, nakalagay dyan ngayon, the 3 redacted, who redacted, Mr. Duterte to date, all agree that blank, that redacted, the specific characteristics of Mr. Duterte's redacted identified by these redacted suggest that none of the risks envisaged in Article 58.1b of the Rome Statute can be actualized. So ang sabi po nito in Tagalog, itong paragraph 8, based daw dito sa ginawa nitong tatlong to na redacted na ang tingin ko ay doctors, na ang ginawa po ng mga to ay in-examine si FPRRD. Ang nangyari po sa situation ng FPRRD because of this, yung pagtingin nitong tatlong doktor, pag-examine kay FPRRD, yung mga risk dun sa 58.1b na binasa po natin kanina ay hindi daw present po yung mga risks na yon na nakalagay sa Article 58.1b. Okay, yung minention ko po doon na yung appearance ng accused sa trial or yung mag-obstruction of justice or magpatuloy sa pag-commit ng crime. Wala daw yung mga risk na yon because of the situation ni Mr. Duterte or ni FPRRD as provided po nitong tatlong to, who I am assuming ay doctors na nag-examine kay FPRRD. Okay, but again, tandaan po nyo, assumption ko lang po to. Kaya nga sabi ko dun sa Facebook post ko na naging manghuhula ako dito kasi sobrang dami pong redacted. But again, if we look at everything po, this one and the next paragraphs, it really appears that this is health related, itong mga redacted. redacted dito na reasons ni Atty. Kaufman. Okay, so yan po yan. Next naman po dito sa risk of flight, to letter I, risk of flight, diniscuss to ni Atty. Kaufman bakit hindi risk of flight si FPRRD basically. So sinabi po dito, basahin po muna natin para maintindihan nyo talaga. Number 11, in addition to the redacted final report, detail some of the redacted. For example, redacted, highlighted, a redacted, conducted on 16 May 2025 that editorial invention. Okay, so ang dami po redacted, diba? Pero kung titingnan po nyo, ang main point dito ni Atty. Kaufman, hindi daw risk of flight si FPRRD kasi ito, yung pinaka naintindihan ko po dito is this one Mr. Duterte is thus redacted and requires not just redacted but also continuous redacted. So ang tingin ko dito, Mr. Duterte is thus old or he is currently sick, he has an illness and requires not just regular maintenance, medication but also continuous siguro monitoring and medication, diba? So from this part po, mukha pa ring health reason to siya yung argument. But again, these are all just may manghuhula na lang kasi sobrang dami pong redacted, diba? So because of this po na yung inassume ko na health related pa rin, hindi daw flight risk si FPRRD. Tapos yung pangalawang part naman po ng sentence itong paragraph 11, ang sinabi daw ng prosecutor dito ay posible daw na may magawa si FPRRD pag conveniently nilagay daw at his disposal dun sa madaling makuha ni FPRRD ang isang certain bagay. So this one, I'm not really sure kung ano to siya but maybe it has something to do na para tumakas po si FPRRD from dun sa state na magre-receive sa kanya. Pero ang sabi ni Atty. Kaufman dun, such flight would also require a degree of blank. Kailangan siguro to ng expertise, would also require a degree of expertise, diba? Kasi pag magpalipad ka naman po ng airplane, ng helicopter, kailangan yun ng expertise So hindi siya basta-basta magagawa ni FPRRD. Assuming nga na itong redacted na to dito is about airplanes or yung mga air transport na ilalagay daw sa disposal, conveniently placed at the disposal of FPRRD by a network of supporters. Pero according to Atty. Kaufman, ano lang daw yan, prosecutorial invention lang kasi hindi daw yun mangyari kasi yun nga, it requires expertise para mapagana man yun kung ano man to na ilalagay po ng mga supporters ni FPRRD. But again, tandaan po nyo puro lang po to manghuhula lang tayo kasi sobra pong daming redacted. But of course, I'm just discussing po based on my expertise, my knowledge, my wisdom, my experience as a lawyer kasi syempre may mga nababasa rin naman po tayong cases na hindi naman talaga 100% similar but somewhat similar. So therefore, nagkakaroon tayo ng mga assumptions, possible assumptions as to ano tong mga redacted dito na sinasabi. So again, ito pong first part, this most likely refers to the health of FPRRD kasi yun nga, diba, Mr. Duterte is thus blank, redacted, and requires not just monitoring, maintenance ba, but also continuous monitoring pa or maintenance from medication. But again, these are just all assumptions na po. Ina-emphasize ko lang po yan paulit-ulit kasi baka po paniwalaan nyo ako 100%. So anyway po, ang tatandaan natin dito, more on maritesan lang po tayo dito because of all these redacted, diba? I cannot of course substitute my wisdom or my opinion for the actual na nakasulat talaga dito. Pero since they are all redacted, confidential, unfortunately, hanggang dun po ang pwede natin gawin. Magmaritesan lang muna. Okay? So yan po yung sa risk of flight. And then yung next naman po, risk of interference with witnesses, number 2. So the redacted of Mr. Duterte's redacted shows redacted. So very short lang tong explanation ni Atty. Kaufman dito. So yung nilagay ko na lang pong note dito, old and sick. Mr. Duterte is old and sick, let alone unaware siguro to about disclosed witnesses such that he is able to instruct others. Siguro, I think this is supposed to be not able. Either not able to siya or mali lang yung pagka-assume ko dito sa redacted. Kasi yun nga, mahirap po maging manghula. Yun yung main point ko dito. But yung main point lang dito ni Atty. Kaufman, wala ring risk of interference with witness because of, tingin ko itong first part is about the health pa rin po to ni FPRRD. Ito lang yung second, yung medyo hindi ako sure talaga. But the main conclusion dito is hindi daw magkaka-obstruction of justice, diba? Kasi hindi maka-interfere po si FPRRD dun sa mga witnesses. Okay, so hopefully klaro po yan. And then next po, number 3, risk of committing further crimes. All 3 redacted, ascertained, redacted, redacted. So makita nyo yung all 3 na naman. So kung tama yung hula ko, ito yung all 3 doctors ascertained na may condition si FPRRD. So therefore, they further commented that redacted. With this in mind, it is unreasonable to conclude that Mr. Duterte would possess. This is probably the strength or the power necessary to formulate and execute the continued commission of crimes. Because kung tama nga yung hula natin na yung doctors tong 3 na to, and then yung ascertained yung sa health reasons ni FPRRD, therefore si FPRRD po does not possess the strength and the power necessary to formulate and execute the continued commission of crimes. Okay? So again, this is just an assumption of mine pero bumalik na naman po kasi itong all 3. So yung hula natin dun sa taas, doctors to, diba? Yung all 3. So therefore, this is health related. So kung dahil sa health ni FPRRD or his advanced age or old age, hindi niya kaya gawin yung mga pag-commit ng mga crimes na inallege na kinumit daw niya. Okay? So again, a very straightforward explanation lang po from Atty. Kaufman for number 3, yung risk of committing further crimes. Yung medyo mahaba lang dito actually is itong risk of flight, and then ito yung introduction niya na related sa mukhang sa health talaga kasi ito na naman po yan yung the 3 redacted who redacted. Okay, so anyway, yan po yun yung 3 reasons bakit daw dapat mag-grant yung interim release because number 1, there is no risk of flight on the part of FPRRD, there is also no risk of interference with witnesses, and number 3, wala pong risk of committing further crimes. Okay, so hopefully klaro po yan. letter B, nireiterate na naman po ni Attorney Kaufman na yung receiving state na kinausap na nila is still willing to receive FPRRD. So makita po niyan sa paragraph 14. For the sake of clarity, the defense informs the pretrial chamber that the redacted, so this is the receiving state to most likely, continues to affirm its willingness to cooperate with the court to accept Mr. Duterte on its territory and to enforce conditions of release. The redacted is furthermore fully aware of Mr. Duterte's redacted. So ito yung reason for the interim release. So this is again most likely yung health reason or age reasons po ni FPRRD. So yung main point lang dito, hindi nagbago yung isip ng receiving state yung kinausap nila Attorney Kaufman despite po of the developments in the case. Kasi yun nga, di ba, initially may final, tapos nag-object bigla yung prosecution, tapos nagka-deferral of the adjudication or the decision dun sa first request. Kaya madami ng paliko-liko na nangyari. But despite all of those paliko-liko, ito pong receiving state has still affirmed its willingness to cooperate with the court and to receive and accept FPRRD. Di ba? So buti na lang po hindi nagbago yung mood nitong receiving state. Hindi po sila nagkaroon ng mood swings basically, despite all the happenings. Okay, so that is actually a very good thing kasi mukhang ito talagang receiving state na to yung pinupukpok ni Attorney Kaufman. So sa tingin ko po, kaya ito yung pinupukpok talaga ni Attorney Kaufman, most likely aalagaan talaga siguro nila si FPRRD. Kaya dito gusto ni Attorney Kaufman mapunta po si FPRRD na receiving state. And then ito rin po yung number 16, paragraph 16, sinabi rin ni Attorney Kaufman na yung mga arguments daw dito ng prosecution na para hindi po igawing receiving state yung gusto ni Attorney Kaufman kay FPRRD ay can easily be addressed daw yung mga objections dun ng prosecution. Okay? So unang-una kasi yung issue na nire-raise ng prosecution is yung presence daw ni FPRRD at the confirmation proceedings, which is yan yung sa September. Pero ang sabi naman ni Attorney Kaufman, yung presence naman daw sa September confirmation proceedings, it may be waived, di ba? Tapos kung hindi niya i-waive, possible pa rin naman daw po, it can equally be ensured by way of video conference. So ito po yung mga Zoom meetings. So basically yung sa yung sa initial hearing ng FPRRD, di ba, he was only via video conference doon. Then si Attorney Medialdea lang yung nandun sa ICC mismo. So yung mga grounds po or reasons ng prosecution sa pag-object ay madali daw ma-solve yun. Kasi unang-una nga po, pwede daw naman i-waive yung presence ng FPRRD or pwede naman mag-video conference sa confirmation hearings. Okay? And then yung next naman pong ground for objection ng prosecution is kailangan daw ng ad hoc cooperation agreement as suggested by the prosecution. Tapos ang sabi po dito ni Attorney Kaufman is illusory. So ano daw yan, parang guni-guni or gawa-gawa lang daw po ng prosecution. Pero ang main reason ni Attorney Kaufman kaya siya naging guni-guni lang kasi ito, notwithstanding, the redacted has already undertaken to abide by all conditions. So ito pong receiving state has undertaken po na susundin niya lahat ng conditions na required ng Article 4, Paragraph 2 of the Model Agreement on Interim Release. Okay, so yan po yung counter ni Attorney Kaufman doon. So again, ang sabi ni Attorney Kaufman, ito daw ad hoc operation agreement is guni-guni nga lang siya. Pero kahit na guni-guni pa rin daw po siya, nagpakita pa rin ng good faith tong receiving state kasi willing pa rin sila to abide nga doon sa lahat ng conditions para dito sa ad hoc operation agreement under nitong Article 4.2 of the Model Agreement on Interim Release. So kung makita ninyo dito, yung maganda po dito, in-address talaga nila Attorney Kaufman isa-isa yung mga objections ng prosecution. So from there, from how I see it, that is favorable to FPRRD because they have a defense or an argument against all the objections po na ni-raise ng prosecution para sa pag-grant ng interim release ni FPRRD. Okay? And then of course po, yung last part ng pleading is the conclusion and relief sought. Sa atin po, equivalent nito is yung prayer po na nilalagay sa pleading. So of course, ang pinaka-prayer dito is gusto nila mag-grant yung interim release ni FPRRD. Diba? So una po, tingnan muna natin sa paragraph 18, ang sinabi dito ni Attorney Kaufman, should the prosecution be permitted to challenge the aforementioned and redacted, resolving the issue of redacted could take several months or more, especially if other redacted are redacted. Mr. Duterte's continued detention during this protracted process would not be fair or reasonable. So ito po pala itong paragraph 18 kasi based po dito sa in-explain ni Attorney Kaufman, ang assessment ko po dito ay may ginagawa po yung prosecution para mapa-delay yung proceedings tungkol sa pag-grant ng interim release. Siguro may mga clarificatory questions sila sa court or sa witnesses nila. So doon nahihirapan sila Attorney Kaufman. So ang pinaka-point po dito ni Attorney Kaufman is that hindi na daw kailangan antayin pa na ma-solve yung issue na yon na nire-raise ng prosecution kasi that issue daw po, ito yan, could take several months. So kung matagal pa yun siya, yung issue na yon, hindi naman talaga yun related sa interim release pero parang nako-commingle na sila. And because of that po, ang continued detention daw ni FPRRD is not fair or reasonable dun sa side ni FPRRD. Okay, so ulitin ko lang po. Ang tingin ko po dito, itong number 18, nagkakaroon ng mga delaying tactics more or less po sa side ng prosecution para mag-grant yung interim release. So ang counter-argument ni Attorney Kaufman, dapat daw hindi na antayin na isolve mo na yon yung mga ginagawa ng prosecution kasi it would be unreasonable and not fair to FPRRD kung isasabay sila. Kasi yung isang issue daw, it could take several months pa nga, 'di ba? Pwede na madesisyonan yung interim release kasi the granting of an interim release is a totally different issue naman po. po. Okay, so yan po yung clarify din dito ni Attorney Kaufman. And then of course, sa paragraph 19, ito na yung pinaka-main prayer talaga nila. So as such, the defense renews and reiterates its request that the pretrial chamber order Mr. Duterte's immediate release into redacted. So saan po kaya to, ano? So ito po pala, I'm very curious din. Baka meron po kayong balita dyan, taong bayan, kung ano tong receiving state na to. So share po kayo dyan sa comment section. Maritesan lang naman po to, diba? Kasi sa sobrang daming redacted, naging manghuhula po ako eh. So wag po kayo mahiya, manghula din kung ano tong receiving state. Okay, so anyway, ang last po, subject to any conditions deemed appropriate. Okay, so yan po yung pinaka-prayer na dapat lumabas na yung court order ng ICC para sa immediate release daw po ni FPRRD dun sa receiving state. Okay, so that is all for this pleading po. Hopefully may naintindihan kayo despite all the redacted and all the manghuhula ko na ginawa. But I tried to make it as simple as possible. Again, just based on my stock knowledge as a lawyer. Pero yung mga ito pong hula ko, I would just like to reiterate again, hindi po tayo sure talaga dyan. Pero mukhang yun naman po eh. Pero maritesan lang naman po to, so okay na lang yun. Okay, so hanggang dyan lang po muna yung video natin. If you like more legal educational videos po, may sasuggest po yan sa YouTube algorithm dito. And until next time, see you all po. Bye-bye!